start the recording. So welcome everyone. So this is a session entitled LFNO, Unique French American Public School in North America. I'm Sophie Cap-Martin. In case you don't know me, I'm the Executive Director of Academics. Okay, I've recorded the session, so be aware that this session is recorded. Okay, so here is the agenda of this session. First, I'm going to provide some very basic information about LFNO, the history, the enrollment, and our current locations. Secondly, which is going to be the big bulk of the presentation, it's going to be about the meaning of being a French American school, charter school. Then I will go over some basics about our academic program. And then I will conclude with presenting our team, because LFNO is growing, so is the academic team. So I think it's important that parents know who they can contact in the team for specific academic questions. The goal of this presentation, and I apologize if I look on the left a little bit sometimes because I have two screens and my other screen is on the left. So the first goal is to better understand really LFNO dual identity, and it's not easy. The second goal is really to understand what is special about LFNO and how is LFNO different from other French immersion programs, but also from other public schools in Louisiana. The goal is also to have a very broad, very general understanding of our curriculum program. And then finally, I will briefly talk about our different pathways in high school. So what to expect during this presentation, just so you know, I'm going to provide a lot of information today, but don't worry, I will share the slides at the end. So you don't have to memorize everything. I will share all the information with you at the end of this presentation, and then it will be posted on the website. I'm going to be making some very broad statements because the idea of this session is really to give a very general overview of Lycée, of what is a charter school and what is a French accredited school. So if you are an expert in the charter school system, or if you are an expert in the French accreditation system, you might not learn too much because I'm really going to stick to the basics. But because it's the beginning of the year, I think it's important that I share all of this with the parents. And also, just so you know, this basically the same presentations was made to teachers at the beginning of the year. So as I just mentioned, yes, the slides will be shared. I'm going to keep a time for Q&A at the end. If I feel like I'm talking a little bit too much, I might pause and then ask for Q&A maybe in the middle of the presentation. We'll see how it goes. And just so you know, I've included a lot of hyperlinks in the slides so that if you are interested and you want to go further and understand better some of the questions, you can, once you'll get the presentation, you can go and look at all of those hyperlinks. And then I'm already saying this, but there is a short exit ticket, and it's so at the end of the presentation or like in the next couple of days, if you don't mind taking just a few minutes, it's really very short questions, just so I get feedback on the presentations and I can assess the effectiveness and what maybe needs to be explained more. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to look at my time. Okay, it's 4:35. So very briefly, a little bit of LFNO history and timeline. So as you might know, LFNO was created in 2011, so 10 years ago, by a group of parents who wanted to basically provide more access to a bilingual, high-quality education. LFNO is a free public charter school financed by the state of Louisiana, and it's managed by a board of directors and governed by a charter signed by the Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, BESI. The charter reflects the first objectives that Lycée offers to provide a high-quality bilingual education from kindergarten through high school in a non-denominational environment where social diversity is essential to the student's education. So, and here you have the link to the charter if you're interested in reading the charter. Very broadly, you have on this slide, you have the how we got the different classes. So as you can see, in 2011, Lycée started with level pre-K 3 all the way to kindergarten. So I will go into what it was a cycle 1 for the French system. And then each year, basically, we've been adding some grade levels. On the second line here, you can see I've indicated the different steps toward our accreditation, but I'm going to be speaking about it in more details a little bit further in the presentations. But basically, you can see that we started with the accreditation process in 2014. And, we just got accredited here in 2021, all the way till 10th grade. I'll go over it later. Just so you have an idea about also what it means in terms of number of students. Unfortunately, I didn't have the numbers for the first 2 years of the existence of the school, but you can see that in 2013, we had 404 students. And today, in the 2021-2022 school year, the current enrollment is 1,117 students. So you can see that we've had a big increase in the number of students. So I put some numbers right here on the slides. So you can see that the school is growing really fast. Okay, and that was in the past 3 years. Okay, just a reminder, especially if you are a new parent, currently we have 3 campuses. We have the Patton campus, which is located on Patton Street. And at Patton, there are students from pre-K 4 all the way till 2nd grade. And currently, I'm just using the enrollments that I looked in the past few days. We have 423 students at Patton, and the campus principal is Miss Danielle Dufauchard. Johnson, which is on Monroe Street, welcomes grades 3rd through 7th, and currently we have 503 students. The campus principal is Gina Bianchi. And now we have the McNair campus, which welcomes the students from 8th grade all the way till 11th grade. And we currently have 191 students at this campus, and the principal is Ms. Hannah Benenson. So this is just a map if you're not from New Orleans, or if you just moved to the city, basically where our 3 campuses are. And you can just see that they are really not far from one another, especially the Johnson campus and the McNair campus are really close to one another. Okay, so that was just a really quick introduction in case you didn't know anything about Lycée. So this is really the heart of the presentation today. What is a French American charter school? So I use this visual with the teachers and staff to kind of like visualize what it means to be a French American charter school. So we have the froggy gator. So obviously the alligator face is for the Louisiana, and the frog body is for the French part of our school. So maybe it will help you understand a little bit what we do at our school if you think about the froggy gator. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Louisiana part and what it means to be a charter school. Again, I'm prefacing that this is some very broad statement, and if you already know a lot about the charter school system, I'm basically stating evidence, but it's at the same time, it's always good to do that at the beginning of the year. So what it means to be a Louisiana public charter school. Number one, we do have an open enrollment policy, and any student in the state of Louisiana can attend our school. We do have a number of spots reserved to students coming from economically disadvantaged background. This refers to the economically disadvantaged category from the state of Louisiana. Actually, I forgot to include this link in the slide. I'll add it later. We currently have 75% of students in pre-K 4 who qualified as economically disadvantaged. And we don't have the current number for a percentage for kindergarten, but it's typically between 60 and 65%. The only condition to enter our program after kindergarten is to have sufficient French language proficiency. And if you start at our school after kindergarten, you will have to take a French proficiency test. As a public school, of course, we rely on state funding. And in case you don't know how it works, basically there is a certain amount that is allocated to public schools per student. And it's called the MFP, Minimum Foundation Program. And here you have the link. It's a very complicated formula, but if you're interested in knowing how they give money to schools for students, you have all of the information there. We provide required accommodations and services for students with exceptionalities, so students with IEPs and students with 504. We are mandated to prepare students to the mandatory standardized testing. So I put the big LEAP 2025 on the right of the page. I will provide a little bit more details later in the presentation about that. And this is specifically for students from grade 3 to 12. And we provide all required courses for students to graduate with their Louisiana TOPS university diploma. As a public school, we are required to provide all of those required courses. If you exactly want to know which courses are required, because I'm not going to go into that today, you have the exact list of courses linked here. A few more points. We do have to be in compliance with the yearly instructional minutes for each grade level. We do have to follow state requirements with regard to teachers' evaluation. It's called the COMPAS. And we do have to provide professional development opportunities for all of our teachers. This is also required. And we continually assess and measure students' academic learning results to inform instruction and to provide remediation to students. So we do provide a lot of, like right now we are doing benchmark testing to assess the students. I'm going to try to keep up with the chat too. Oh, somebody in the chat told me that they can't see my screen. Could you confirm if I have other people not being able to see my screen? No? Okay, I see other people can see. Okay, maybe it's a problem with this person's screen. Okay, well, please let me know if you have issues or if I speak too fast or if I need to repeat. Thank you so much. Okay. So this was a very, very quick and general overview of the charter school. What I'm going to focus on now is more what it means. That was more the American side, and we're going to go into the French side because I'm assuming that most parents are American, so they are less familiar with the French side of things. So a French school, what does it mean? So first statements. So all statements are very important. LFNO is not only a French immersion program, but a French accredited school. So basically, this is my statement, and this is what I'm going to explain now. So a French immersion program is a program where students are taught a given curriculum. So at LFNO, it's the Louisiana curriculum in French. ISL and Heinz in New Orleans are French immersion programs. So what French immersion means, it means that the students are taught a certain curriculum in French. In Louisiana, we do have a lot of immersion programs. These are some recent numbers. We have about 100,000 students across Louisiana in about 26 French immersion schools across 8 parishes. I put some links here if you're interested. A lot of it comes from the CODOFIL, which is the Council for the Development of French in Louisiana, and explains why French immersion is so important in Louisiana. Of course, in Louisiana, it is a heritage language. The French were here back in the 18th century, so it's considered a heritage language. Immersion also increases academic achievement in students, global competency, and provides students with a lot more opportunities when they leave school, especially in Louisiana, where French is spoken all around. So again, if you click on here, you'll have more details about that. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So this is about French immersion. Okay, so sometimes my experience working with staff, parents, the community in general, is that the accredited part of a school is not really well understood. So I'm going to really emphasize this part in the rest of the presentation now. So as I mentioned, an LFNO is a French immersion, but it's also a French accredited school. So a French accredited school is a school that underwent and undergoes a series of audits by the French Ministry of Education, which establish compliance of the school with the French national educational system. In French accredited schools, students are expected to receive a similar education as the one they would receive if they were to attend a school in France. So those are the two big concepts. French immersion school, you are teaching in French, or students are taught in French. A French accredited school, it really means a French school that is displaced abroad in a different countries than France. So I'm going to go in a few more details into how a school become accredited, and then kind of like what it means. And I'm going into that because then it means that we have some requirements with regard to academics, which is what I'm interested in today, so you can understand a little bit better. So I'm going to go over a little bit the accreditation process and then the French educational system, because as a French school, that's what we do. We provide an education that is similar to what students would receive in France. Okay, so the process to become accredited, a school has to go and undergo a year-long minimum audit by the French educational authorities. So then you'll see I have a sort of a timeline. The first steps is to provide an application. It's a very extensive application. That's why I put this little drawing with this person like drowned into paperwork, where because you have to document all aspects of the school life. They want to look at everything. They want to look at the schedules. They want to look at your enrollment. They want to look at your curriculum, at the facilities. They want to see everything. So you have to document that first. Once your application is actually accepted, which is not a given, so they review the application, and let's say they accept your application, then you have to undergo an in-person audit. So this means that the French government send a French inspector who comes from France sometimes, and the French inspector audits the school. And during this audit, the French inspector meets meets all of the members of the school community individually. It's really like an audit. So they meet the members of the board, they meet the teachers, they meet the students. Of course, they meet the administration, etc., etc. Once the audit is done, the French inspector writes a report and submits it to French authorities. And then finally, it's an independent commission who reviews this report. And they actually, more than the report, they review everything, the applications, the report, anything they can gather about the school. This commission, which is called la Commission interministérielle d'homologation, they are in Paris, and they are the one who, after reviewing all of the pieces of information that they have, whether they approve or they refuse to provide accreditation to a school. So this is the process. So actually, this is the accreditation certificate from last year. So we received the certificate last year in September for pre-K 4, donc moyenne section, it says on the document, all the way to 9th grade. We have a new accreditation, but we haven't received the certificate yet, so I couldn't show it on the screen. Okay, so that was the process, but really, what are they looking at? What are they interested in? So I just put the major point that they are interested in when they look at during the audit or during the application. Here are the main things that they look at. Of course, they're going to look at the conformity to the French educational system principles and, of course, the programs. So that means they look at the curriculum, they look at our pedagogical approaches, they look at the instructional minutes. So if you remember, when I was talking about the charter school, I also mentioned that we have to be compliant with the Louisiana, the instructional minutes for Louisiana. Well, we have a similar requirements for the French government, except you can imagine because it's two different governments, they don't necessarily have the same requirements. So sometimes it becomes a little bit complicated. We have to comply with schedules and with the school calendars. Just some examples. Something, of course, that they look at is the mastery of the French language by the students, the qualification of faculty and staff. They want to see that students are participating in French national evaluations, but also, so those can be like certifications, such as the DELF. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but also French exams, such as the brevet or the baccalaureate. And they also have very specific requirements with regard to facilities and equipment. So you see, it's a really wide area of things that they look at. Okay, important. Once the school is accredited, it's not over. It's not like once you got it, you passed, this is it, you got your accreditation for life. No, we have a lot of requirements. Number one, we have to provide some yearly reports about our enrollments, about our curriculum, et cetera, to the French authorities abroad. It's called the AIFE, the French Agency for Teaching Abroad. We do have regular meetings, both formal and informal, with French inspectors and the French authorities in the region. So our region is North America. So we have meetings with all the French schools in the United States and Canada. And we have regular audits. So typically it's about every 4 or 5 years, during which the inspector comes back and they look again at everything I just mentioned in the previous slides. If they notice any areas of non-compliance, they ask the school to take immediate actions. And then basically you have a plan. And of course, you get a chance to address and to improve your program to be more compliant. And you can be put, if they identify too many, you can be put on a probation plan for a year. And if after a year you cannot fix what you were asked to fix, basically they can withdraw the accreditation. So thought it was important to explain that an accreditation is basically always ongoing. Okay, just so you have an idea about what it means to be a French accredited school in the world. It means you are part of a network. So the numbers I have on these slides are from last year. So last year, there were 535 accredited schools throughout the world. Once you'll get this presentation, you can go see, and you can click on the link at the bottom of the page here, and you can go see, like which countries are as which school, etc. So that's about 270,000 students worldwide who are in French accredited schools. So of course we are more interested in North America because that's where we are. So in North America there are currently 58 accredited schools, and actually there are 3 French accredited schools in Louisiana, and more specifically in New Orleans. So the 3 accredited schools in New Orleans are LFNO, Audubon Charter Uptown, and École Bilingue de la Nouvelle-Orléans. What's important to keep in mind is that most of those French accredited schools are private schools. So unfortunately, I don't have the number or the percentage worldwide. I just have the percentage for our region, for North America. But in North America, out of the 58 schools, 55 are private and 3 schools are public. Of course, if it's public, it means it's free. So it means it's accessible to more students. Sometimes students who otherwise would not be able to attend those programs. Those three schools, I just want everyone to be aware where they are, because I know you probably all know Audubon Charter School uptown, which welcomes students from pre-K4 all the way to eighth grade. But there is also another public charter school in the United States in California, in Santa Rosa. It's the French American Charter School, and they welcome students from K all the way through 5th grade. And then LFNO is actually the only public schools that welcome students from pre-K4 all the way to 9th grade. And we recently received accreditation for a 10th grade section. I will explain what a section means in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to continue. So here is the history of accreditation at LFNO. And if you remember, that's kind of like presenting the information that was on one of the first slides a little bit differently. So I'm not going to go over everything, but you can see that our first accreditation came in 2014 for pre-K, for the grade pre-K4, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And then basically about every 3 or 2 years, we continued to ask for other grade levels because, of course, we were progressing with the school. The major difference you can see for July 2021, it says accreditation section 10th grade. So what it means is that, and now maybe you'll understand too as the presentation progresses, all the way from pre-K4 to 9th grade, the entire levels are accredited. There is no difference. Starting in 10th grade, we have a section, it basically, we have 2 pathways and only one pathway is accredited. So only one section has to follow the exact requirements from the French Ministry of Education. Okay, so that was a quick explanation of what it means to be a charter school. Yes, and I see a comment in the chat. Karen, you are correct. There is also a charter, a public charter high school in Miami, and they are public. This is correct. I tend to focus on the elementary school. That's why I forgot about it. Okay, so you probably you all have picked French education for your child, so you might already know what I'm going to present, but maybe not. So I'm just going to provide some broad statement about French. What is a French education? What is the French national curriculum all about? So if you're interested, actually here, when you get to these slides, where it says, why choose a French education for your child? This is a pretty nice brochure made by the French government. It's in English, it's bilingual, and they have a lot of in-depth information. So I would recommend that you look at it if you're interested. Actually, and it's also put it in Spanish in case we have any Spanish speakers. Okay, so this is the content of the presentation, and it's just, I put it here because it kind of highlights some of the specificities of what France wants to emphasize in their educational system. So as I mentioned, multilingualism and multiculturalism is very important. Freedom of choice. A lot of the French identity is built around the French Revolution, 1789, and a lot about the freedom of choice. Preparing the students to become students of the world. The importance, the importance of, they call it nursery school, we call it l'école maternelle. I will talk about it a little bit later. The cycle one is something very, very important in the French system. Another specificity, and actually when the French inspectors come to visit our school, they look very carefully at what we do in PE, in sport, in music, and in art. This is something very specific about the French national education, and they are very proud of it, or we are very proud of it. So they really look at if we are in alignment in those disciplines. The implication of parents within the education. A positive community culture. In our curriculum, the well-being of the student is very, very important, etc., etc. I'm not going to go over it, but those were some major themes in the French education. I'm repeating a little bit, but those are the main principles of French education. Freedom of choice. This is actually with regard to where you can put your kids in school in France. You have the freedom of choice. School is free in France. It's something that I forgot to put the numbers here, but when compared to the United States, it's much higher. I could provide the exact number. Neutrality. So teachers and students are required to be neutral at school. They cannot share any political opinions. This is basically forbidden. As a teacher, you can get in a lot of trouble if you share your political opinion in school, in a school setting. Secularism is something that's very important. No, you cannot wear any signs that identify your religion in a French public school. Something very different than the United States, education is mandatory starting at age 3. So when I was talking about the importance of our preschool, the cycle 1, I'm going to talk about it. It's true because we start at 3. So students start school at 3 years old. And I'm repeating a little bit what I presented in the previous slide, but really the emphasis on foreign languages, artistic education, the importance of PE, a humanist approach to learning, a strong emphasis on digital education, learning how to identify what is false and what is true, etc. They do a lot of media literacy starting in cycle 3 and especially in middle school and high school. I put the link to the French, the official website here. You have a lot of information. Unfortunately, here the website is in French. But if you use Google Translate, you still get you will still get the most of it. Oh, and then in the speaker's notes, that's what I put. I try to link to a lot of articles in English that explain a little bit about the French educational system. Okay, so I'm going to continue. It's 5:05. I'm going to try to accelerate a little bit. Okay, so you understand this is the French system. So it's organized in cycles. So you can see we used a different color for each cycle. Cycle 1 is pre-K3, pre-K4, and kindergarten. It's the early learning cycles. That's really where students learn to become a student, and they learn some really basics in math and also in phonemic awareness, for example. Cycle 2 is first, second, and third grade. It's called the fundamental learning cycle. That's where really students learn how to read, how to really start using the numbers, really things that are going to be fundamental to the future years. Cycle 3 includes fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And each time I've put the equivalent in French, of course. You can see that sixth grade is both part of the cycle 3 and part of the collège, which is the French middle school. It's really important because in the French system, we've tried to accompany better the students from elementary school into middle school because it's difficult for students. So the French curriculum is built so that it's not such a big jump from students going from elementary school to middle school. So then we have cycle 4, which is 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So I bring your attention to the fact that in France, middle school is actually 4 years, 6th grade all the way to 9th grade. We have 4 years of middle school, and then we transition into high school, which is only 3 years. So 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. You can also notice on the slide that the French high school is actually called Lycée. So the word lycée itself actually means high school in French. Just a few words about the cycle system, why it's important. The cycle system is important in the French system because students are expected to master skills by the end of the cycle. We have expectation for each year, but what matters most is that a student masters those skills by the end of the cycle. And the idea with implementing the cycle is that not all students actually mature at the exact same pace. So because we have a cycle, it provides more flexibility with when the students can master those skills, because basically the students have 3 years to master all of the skills. If you're interested in the program, I've linked all of the programs, the French programs in this slide too. Okay, comparison. So now we are slowly moving into here what we do at LFNO. So on the previous slide, I was presenting just the French system. Just so if you're a visual learner like me, this one is about the comparison between the US and the French system. So it's basically what was on the previous slide. So on the left in blue, you have the US system, and on the right, the French. Major difference is that we have 3 years of maternelle, which is our preschool. Then we have école élémentaire, which is 5 years, just like in the United States. And we have 4 years of collège, and then 3 years of high school. I've indicated here the cycles that I just presented in the previous slide. Okay, so that's the entire system. Okay, so now really, what do we do at LFNO with regard to academics? So this slide is different from the previous because if you notice, now maternelle is only 2 years, because at LFNO we only start in pre-K 4. We don't have a pre-K 3 class. And currently, our highest class is the 11th grade, and it's la classe de première. Okay, so this is basically the same slide, except I've added some colors. So on the left is still the US, and on the right, it's the French. I've used the purple because at LFNO, I hope you're starting to understand or to think about the Froggy Gator. We do both the Louisiana and the French standards. So that's why on top I put the link toward the Louisiana standards and the French standards. So from pre-K 4 all the way to 9th grade, we do both curriculum. So I insist on that. So as a French accredited public school, we don't have any choices. We have to teach both curricula. So, and we have to be compliant with both governments, the French and the Louisiana one. So of course, it's not always easy because you can only imagine that 2 different governments have different kind of requirements. Okay, so a little bit more details about about what we do. So on this slide, what's important to understand is that from pre-K 4 all the way to 9th grade, all of our students do basically the same. And it's purple because we do both the French and the Louisiana. Starting in 10th grade, that's when we start having 2 different pathways. We have a pathway that starts in 10th grade that's called the French Immersion pathway. That's when students focus, they are in a French immersion program. So I think now I can assume that you all understand what a French immersion program is. They are learning about the Louisiana standards in French, and it continues, it's the same in 11th grade. On the right, it's purple because the students who opt in the French, what we call the French backtrack in 10th grade, they're going to prepare both for the TOPS high school diploma and the French baccalaureate. So now I'm bringing your attention to the top, to the yellow part. We prepare all of our students who are in high school with us to the TOPS. Actually, I'm sorry, I made a mistake in the slide. It's called the TOPS University Diploma, not the TOPS High School Diploma. It's the TOPS University Diploma, which has very specific requirements mandated by the states of Louisiana. If you opt in the French backtrack, in addition to the TOPS University Diploma, you're gonna prepare for the French baccalaureate. So I'm not going to go today. I'm not going into really more details about the different pathways for high school. We're going to have a high school cafe coming up soon where we'll go into all of those details. Okay, a few words about our exams and certifications at LFNO. So on this table, I might not go over everything because it's already 5:12 and I want to make sure I keep some time for questions. We have some mandatory tests for the state of Louisiana. We have the LEAP 2025 for students in grade 3 to 8, EOC, which is also really the LEAP, but it's for students in high school. EOC stands for end of course, and it is part of LEAP. Those are the subjects for EOC: Algebra 1, Geometry, English 1 and 2, Biology, and US History. Those EOC are required to graduate with your TOPS University Diploma. We have some AP courses, and so some of our students take some AP exams, and we had some students who took their first APs last year. It was, of course, AP French. So currently at LFNO, we have AP French, and we have AP English for the first time in 11th grade this year. When I look at the French side, actually, I'm going to look at it's called the DNB, or the brevet, le Diplôme National du Brevet, that students take in 9th grade. Students take this is the first French exam that ever take. And it's a content-based exam in French, math, history, geography, and science. And of course, because it is a French exam, the language of assessment is French. And soon, actually, for the first time this year, we'll have some students who are preparing for the BAC. The BAC is for baccalaureate. And students typically have exams in 11th and 12th grade, and it's basically all subjects. Okay, so this is just a color. So blue for Louisiana and red for French. And just so if I go back to this visual, so you can see how it works more visually. So from 3rd to 8th, we have the LEAP testing followed by EOC. It's in the middle of the presentation because all students, doesn't matter even if they go in the French track pathway, everybody has to take all of those exams. Brevet is also for all students. And then we also have some APs. APs is accessible to all students, but it's a choice. It's a choice from the family or from the students. But however, it's available for both tracks. I will go, during the high school cafe, I will go into more specifics on how it is a little bit different based if you are on the French immersion track or if you're on the French baccalaureate track. And then I put back on the right here because this exam is only for the students who are in the French back track. Very quickly, we also have the DELF. The DELF is a certification. It is not an exam. It's a certification. And currently, we offer 3 types of DELF at Lycée. We have the DELF Prime A2, students taking in 5th grade. The DELF measures the French language proficiency in all 4 main skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. In 8th grade, they take the B1, and this year, in 11th grade, they will take the B2. So same thing, you have a visual with all of this information. It's 5:16. I'm going to try to wrap it up really quickly by giving you a very, very general overview of our academics program. I'm not really going into any more details, but then I will present quickly the people that you can reach out to if you want more information about those specifics program. I actually going to go over it really quickly because I want to keep time for Q&A. What I did in the next few slides, just so you know, I basically I've broken it down in different disciplines. So you have French, math, science, etc. And each time I kind of emphasize whether we align with the French standards. Most of the time we have to merge both standards, and then I emphasize the language of instruction. So for example, in the French, when we in the French language art class, we align with the French national standards, except in 10th grade French immersion and 11th grade French immersion, where the students take specific language courses. So for example, when our students in 10th grade take the AP French, of course they have to follow the AP French curriculum. Or this year, actually, students are going to be taking French speech in 11th grade, and they have to follow this curriculum. Of course, then this is in yellow. Of course, it's a French class. The course is taught in French. So very quickly, so you have an overview and you understand maybe how those slides are broken down. If I have question in Q&A, I'll come back. I did the same for math, and I've highlighted the language of instruction each time. So in math, of course, we teach in French. English is taught in English. Science, it's taught in French also, and I've highlighted the specificities for each grade. You'll have all of the material you can review in the slides. And social studies, actually I have a few more, but social studies, it's a bit more complicated. Sometimes we add some content that is taught in English, either by the ELA teachers or by a social studies specialist, or civics or US history. And this is just a short slide about Spanish. Spanish classes are of course taught in Spanish. Physical education, as I emphasize, is very important in the French system, and so are arts and music. So this, I apologize, I don't want to spend too much time on it. And I'm going to conclude this presentation before taking questions by just introducing the team. That way, if you have a child at whatever grade level, you also know who you can contact in the academic team. Of course, you can always contact me and I can, put you in contact with the right person. But here are the people, and a lot of those people are new, so I thought it was important to present them today. For the elementary school, we have 3 instructional coordinators. We have Cécile Olivieri, who is new in this position, who is the coordinator for cycle 1, pre-K and kindergarten. So if you have a child in pre-K and K, Cécile is the best person for you to reach out to. If you have a child in 1st or 2nd grade, Yasa AC, who's been at the school, this is his 3rd year, is the instructional coordinator. And Magali Truchot is the new coordinator for grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We have some content specialized coordinators who work with all of the grade levels, or most grade levels. We have a new person in this team. Her name is Julie Boudenant. She is a French humanities coordinator, and she worked with grades 6 to 11. So anything with regard to French, history, and geography in French, that would be her. Unfortunately, Julie is still has some visa issues, so she hasn't started yet. We still have Samantha Crusher, who is the STEAM coordinator for all of the grade levels, and Annie Nearing, who is our US humanities coordinators, also for all of the grade levels. For middle school, you probably know Yann Collin, who actually is in charge of grades 6 and 7 this year. The high school director and was also the representative for French affairs, Diane Duhem. We are welcoming this year a new person that you might end up reaching out to. His name is Hunter Ponef, and is the testing coordinator. So if you have any question about benchmark testing in general, Hunter is basically your to-go person with me, and and the last person is me. Okay, I'm not going to go into our role. I'm going to conclude here. This is a visual too. If you didn't really understand who works with which grade level, this is another visual that explains what each coordinator does and who basically is the best person to reach out to. This is it. So I'm going to stop here. It's 5:21. I did pretty good with time. I really want to keep the last 10 minutes, and we can take 15 minutes so I can address some questions. I wasn't really able to keep up with the chat, but I'm going to stop here. Thank you for attending. I would really appreciate, I'm going to drop the link actually in the chat. I'm going to stop presenting right now. And I'm going to stop presenting. And I'm going to put the link for the survey in the chat. So if you want to take like 2 minutes to answer. And at this point, I can take some, I'm happy to take questions about things that I went too quickly about or that I need to clarify. So I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself or not, but you can just type in your question in the chat. Oh, I see in Q&A I have some questions. Okay, so I have a question about, are there plans for student study abroad opportunities? There are plans. So this is a question from Adrian. There are plans. This is more of a high school, because students start having opportunities in high school. So we will go over those opportunities when we do the high school cafe. And actually, I'm not the best person on the team to respond to this question, but we were working on opportunities, pre-COVID, but we're still working with that. And actually, we have at least one. Also, we have actually a student visiting this year in high school. I know it's at least one. So we can get back to you on that. Kelly has a question. What is the French accreditation art requirements for pre-K 8 that is not taught except in the gifted and talented group? I'm not sure I understand the question. The French accreditation art requirements for pre-K 8. I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, Kelly. I think you're talking about the art course. So a lot of the art requirements are actually taught by the teachers themselves. In France, you don't have any specialists that can come in your class and teach the art. So a lot of the teachers actually include those in their requirements, and then our art teacher works using the French standards. So I'm not sure I'm understanding the question about the gifted and the talented here. If you want to comment, so I can understand your question better. This is all the questions I have right now. I'm going to wait a few minutes. Well, if I don't have any more questions, what I can do right now is, so I've put the survey. I'm going to put the because you were attending, so I'm going to share my presentation with you right now, and then Elaine is going to be able to put it on the website. So if you know people that couldn't attend, they'll be able to access it on our website. Nope, this is not, sorry. I copied the wrong link. Okay, here. Okay, here is my presentation. So you can share. You can click on the link. Oh, I have a new question now. Does the student and parents decide to do the backtrack, or that is determined by Lycée? Okay, so this is a question from Jennifer. So Jennifer, what we do is that we provide the recommendations. We have different criteria that we share with parents about if we think the backtrack would be a good track for their child. The criteria are the proficiency in French language. We look at academic results. We also we need input about I think I had a question actually from it was a question from Karen about that I had received in advance. the capacity of the students to be working independently. That's a very important one. So on top of my head, I have those three. I know there is a fourth one I can't remember just on top of my head right now, but I can get back to you on that. So basically what we do, we provide a recommendation, and then it's the family that decides, with the student. I think I saw her in the attendance, our academic counselor, Laura Strijewski, really works closely with the families on, like, trying to determine whether it's a good choice for the student. Sometimes it ends up not having anything to do with academics. The French backtrack is very academic heavy, and the students have a very heavy schedule. And for some students, would rather have more time for, art class or all extracurricular activities that they really enjoy doing. Then they end up deciding that the French backtrack is not necessarily for them because it does take a lot of time in school. I see another question. Is there a list of standards topics that you can send home so families know what our kids are learning each week? So we have on the slides, actually, once you get my presentations, I've included all of the, it's kind of separate though. We do have internal documents about exactly our merged curriculum. Typically, it's not organized per week. It's more a tool for teachers as they do their scope and sequence. But also depending on what grade your child is in, a lot of our elementary teachers send a sort of a weekly newsletter when they explain at least what topics they're covering for the week. So that I guess it depends what grade level your child is in. Our middle and high school teachers will share, I don't think they have shared it yet, they share their syllabus, which is an outline of all of the topics. They don't necessarily share the exact standards, but they share all of the topics that they are going to be covering throughout the year. True. Okay. Okay. And I think it's 5:29. So I've tried to take two more questions. I have a questions about what if a student is not feeling challenged in a particular class, for example, in math in middle school. So it's always if you feel like, or your child is reporting to you that they feel like they're not being challenged, the first step is always to contact the teacher and express that to the teacher that your child, or the student, if it's a middle school student, the student can talk to the teacher themselves, but my first recommendation would be to reach out to the teacher directly. Then if you feel like maybe your child need to be is maybe gifted, you need to contact the ESS department, and the new director of the ESS department is Mario Miles. I'm going to put his email in the chat, and you can reach out to him, and then he can explain to you what would be the process if there needs to be an assessment with regard to being placed in a gifted or a talented program. I'm seeing. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. It's also it's 5:31 right now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending. If you have any additional questions, I'm going to put back again the survey. You can, and I put it in the presentation also. Please don't hesitate to ask your question again. If you had a specific question and I wasn't really able to answer, like I didn't have 100% of the information. Like I know Adrienne for study abroad, and then Jennifer, I can get back to you on the, on the criteria. You can either email me. You can email me directly. I'm gonna also, I have my email in the presentation. I'm gonna put it again so I can like circle back to you directly. Okay, and then thank you so much for attending. So as I also indicated, oh shoot, you don't see my presentation anymore, but on the last page there was also the announcement for the next 2 cafes. So the next one is going to be on September 8th, and it's going to be about middle school curriculum and the credits. And the next day, we have a cafe specific for brevet, but this is a cafe more for our 9th grade parents and families. This is not going to be, this is going to be a very technical cafe where we really go about the brevet exam and explain to family how it's going to go. We're going to have a high school cafe either at the end of September or early October, depending how we can schedule that. So those are the next 2 cafes that will take place, and for the next few cafes, it won't just be me. Other people are going to be joining and share their expertise. So again, thank you so much for attending, and please take just a few minutes to do the survey. Thank you very much.